Ben Vitale?
Here.
Chris Petrus?
Here.
Paul Pickney?
Here.
Aileen McNabb Coleman?
Present.
Keith Batman?
Here.
Joe DeForest?
Here.
Charlie Ripley?
Present.
Joseph Bennett?
Here.
Elaine Daly?
Here.
Pat Mahonick?
Here.
Tim Lattimore?
Here.
Michael Didio?
Here.
Ryan Foley?
Present.
Tucker Whitman?
Here. Please stand for the pledge in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Our sincere condolences to the family and friends of Joanne Cayuga, worked for the Cayuga County Department of Social Services, Stephen McLeod, former Cayuga County Undersheriff, Karen Dewey, mother of Lori Bradkey, confidential secretary to the county administrator.
This time I'd like to open a public hearing establishing a local law for sustainable energy loan program in the county of Cayuga and repealing local law number 4 of 2018.
Proclamations. Brian Skank, would you come up?
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank the legislative body for giving me the honor of reading a proclamation tonight in honor of Steve McLeod, who I'm sure many of you know, if not everybody knows, that we lost Steve recently on August 29th due to cancer that he developed as a result of his service in New York City following the September 11th attacks. He worked with our office from 1983 until 2006 when he retired, but he's certainly always been a member of our law enforcement family, and it's an honor for me to present this proclamation tonight to his wife, Ann, and some family members that are here joining us tonight. Whereas in our democratic society, it is an important civic responsibility and a great honor for any governmental body to grant public recognition, admiration, and gratitude to these very citizens who have helped to build this community, ensured its public safety, and influenced the future of its citizens. And whereas Stephen B. McLeod is being recognized for his dedicated service to the people of Cayuga County, for his service to the Cayuga County Sheriff's Office from 1983 to 2006, where he retired as the Undersheriff of Cayuga County. And whereas Stephen was a volunteer for the Wheatsport Fire Department for 35 years, serving his community, and whereas Stephen did volunteer to serve as a member of the Cayuga County Sheriff's Office in New York City during the recovery efforts following the September 11, 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center, where he worked tirelessly with other first responders and volunteers. And whereas Stephen's exposure during these efforts caused him to develop cancer that ultimately took his life on August 29th of this year. And whereas Stephen did succeed in his mission to serve and protect his country, county, and community. And whereas Stephen has earned respect from his fellow Cayuga County employees, area law enforcement members, Wheatsport volunteer firefighters, and the citizens of his community. Because of his heroism during the recovery efforts as a first responder, he has also gained the respect of individuals and agencies from all across the United States, further serving as a testament to his extreme acts of kindness, bravery, and compassion for others. Therefore, be it resolved, on behalf of Tucker Whitman, Chairman of the Cayuga County Legislature, and Chris Petrus, Legislator District 4, and fellow legislators, it is hereby proclaimed their gratitude, and they urge the residents of our county to join with them in recognizing Stephen B. McLeod Day tomorrow on September 25th, 2019.
These proclamations were already presented. The 100th anniversary of the founding Roosevelt Memorial Baptist Church, September 22nd, 2019. United Way Day in Cayuga County, September 17th, 2019.
I'll move on to presentations.
Yep. Hi, Jenny.
As part of our annual compliance training, this year I've decided to discuss fraud, waste, and abuse. So our training objectives is I want to make sure that you all know what noncompliance, fraud, waste, and abuse are, and that you as a legislative body, as legislators, are required to report any instances of noncompliance that you may learn about. Next is that non-retaliation and non-intimidation are policies of this county, as well as supported through state and federal whistleblower protections. And finally, I want to make sure that you all understand the options for reporting any sort of noncompliance. So first up, what is noncompliance? So it's any conduct that does not comply with federal or state laws, rules, or regulations, county policies or practices, local laws, pay or program requirements. So note that it doesn't have anything to do with intent. It simply means that the conduct failed to meet the standards required by a particular law, rule, regulation, or policy. So we're not just talking Medicaid. I know in the past when we talked about compliance, we've talked about it in the realm of Medicaid compliance, but really compliance is a much larger issue that touches all of the departments at the county. Okay. So fraud. The definition as defined by the Office of the Inspector General is wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in financial or personal gain. It includes false representations of fact, making false statements, or by concealment of information. A more narrow definition under state and federal law, it means to knowingly submit or cause to submit a claim for payment that contains false or fraudulent information for the purpose of receiving payment from or to reduce an obligation to pay the government. So within that definition, the term knowingly is important. In the context, it means that a person has either A, actual knowledge of the truth or falsity of the information, B, acts in deliberate ignorance of the truth or falsity of the information, or C, acts in reckless disregard of the truth or falsity of the information. Proof of specific intent to defraud is not required. So some examples of fraud: submitting a false claim, offering payment or acceptance of bribes, kickbacks, or gratuities, falsifying records, making false statements, and theft. Waste, again, as defined by the Office of the Inspector General, is the thoughtless or careless expenditure, mismanagement, or abuse of resources to the detriment or potential detriment of the county. It includes incurring unnecessary costs resulting from inefficient or ineffective practices, systems, or controls. So some examples of waste include buying overpriced equipment from a favored vendor. So let's say that you actually put it out to bid and, oh, it's less expensive over here, but we really like this vendor, let's buy it over here. That's waste. Buying unnecessary equipment for personal gain or use, overutilization of services, billing for services provided but without the required justification that that service was needed. And finally, we have abuse. And again, the definition as defined by the Office of the Inspector General is the excessive or improper use of a thing or use of something in a manner contrary to the natural or legal rules of its use. It can occur in a financial or a non-financial setting. So some examples include misusing one's position of authority, using county resources for personal use, inappropriate use of county-provided electronic devices, unintentionally providing a bill for services without a valid treatment plan. So now that we've discussed what fraud, waste, and abuse are, let's look at a little scenario. An employee wants to make a donation to a charity that has requested donations of copy paper. The employee has asked the purchasing department if the copy paper can be purchased through the county's contract with Staples because it's less expensive than if they were just to buy it in the store. And if it's less expensive, they can buy more paper and donate more. The employee has expressed that they'll pay the county for the paper that's purchased. So, is this okay? Should purchasing allow this?
No.
Exactly, no. So while the employee's intentions may be good, this is an example of abuse. So this employee would be using county resources for personal use. Those resources would include the county's tax-exempt status, because I guarantee you that employee does not have their own tax-exempt status, and also our contract with Staples. So consequences of noncompliance. So sanctions shall be imposed against any personnel for failing to report suspected problems, participating in noncompliance, encouraging, directing, facilitating, or permitting noncompliant behavior. So sanctions may include training or retraining, oral warning, and disciplinary action up to termination. Obviously, it would depend on what was done, the level of the offense. So sanctions aren't just necessarily applied to the employee or the personnel. They can also be imposed against the county for failing to identify, remedy, or mitigate false claims activities. Fraudulent activity can have criminal or civil consequences. So there could be civil prosecution, monetary penalties, criminal convictions, fines. People can have licenses revoked. Depending on the offense, there could be imprisonment. And for the county, we could end up being excluded from federal health care programs and funding. Reporting of noncompliance. So compliance is everybody's responsibility within Cayuga County. It's the employees, vendors and business associates, you as legislators, as well as our Board of Health. Personnel are required to report any instances of fraud, waste, or abuse or other improper conduct internally. So we'll get to where they would report later on, but it's very important to note that it must be reported internally. As I mentioned before, sanctions can be imposed for failing to report suspected problems. The county is required to create and maintain a direct line of communication between its compliance committee and its governing board to prevent against identified risks and to enforce policies. So I know I had put a report in the box as far as compliance activity report for the year, and in there one of the issues raised was how to communicate with the legislature. So I'm open to any suggestions, and if any of you would be interested in joining our compliance committee, I would love that. So keep that in mind. So our compliance committee assists in the reporting process through prevention, so identifying the potential areas of risk through regular reporting of covered departments and their compliance activities, detecting and reporting compliance issues, and then where issues are found to correct them, either through corrective action plans, and then hopefully by identifying areas of fraud, waste, and abuse, And addressing those issues, the county can hopefully save some money. For people that do report any instances of noncompliance, it's important to note that they will not face any sort of retaliation or intimidation. So there are whistleblower protections both under federal and state regulations to protect against the discharge, demotion, suspension, threats, harassment, and other discrimination for reporting noncompliance. How to report noncompliance. So employees should report to supervisors or program directors. For mental health, there is a departmental compliance officer, Elizabeth Burke, that can be reported to. For the health department, Nancy Purdy is our departmental compliance officer. Things can be reported to me directly, or we do also have a compliance hotline. It is anonymous, so essentially it goes through to a voicemail where I just dial into the box. I can't answer the phone directly through it. I can't see who's called, so it is anonymous reporting. So those top four are the internal reporting, and then also an employee or personnel can choose to also report to the Office of the Inspector General compliance hotline. But again, important to note that it needs to be reported internally, does not necessarily need to be reported to the Office of the Inspector General. So does anybody have any questions on compliance or on the training of fraud, waste, and abuse?
Mr. Lattimore.
Does this presentation tonight satisfy all the state requirements?
So I am required to periodically provide a training to the legislature. I have interpreted that to be an annual training. So yes, this would satisfy the annual compliance training of the legislature.
Mark it down, Mr. Chairman.
And I would also like to note that our compliance plan can be found on our county's website now. You can either go to the How Do I button, and I believe it's How Do I Find Compliance Information. Or you can go through the administrator's page, and he has a link to compliance on there as well.
Elaine?
I just, Jenny.
Yes.
Can I assume that you and these two associate compliance officers from the health department and the mental health department are currently on the committee?
We are all on the committee, correct.
Is there others?
There are. So we also have a representative from Finance, which is Mary Beth Leeson, our Deputy Treasurer. HR personnel is also represented. We have recently added IT, and Rich Graham is also serving on there, and he's been a wonderful resource as he's done compliance in other counties as well. And am I missing anyone, Rich, that you can think of? Okay.
In your report, you talk about needing to expand what this compliance program looks like countywide. That's something for the future?
So that's something that I would like to get feedback from the legislature if that's the direction that they would like us to go. But certainly compliance is a bigger issue than just Medicaid. And there are certainly areas of risk in the county. I know when I first came on, it was expressed to me that HIPAA was a big concern. So we've started addressing that. Last year I had a training for that. At the October government ops meeting, Rich and I worked on a policy that's going to be brought forward for HIPAA. So there are other areas that should be addressed and that are areas of risk.
Primarily, you're meeting the obligation of the Medicaid.
I was going to
compliance.
say right now the focus has been Medicaid. I would like to see it expanded in the future, but certainly I would like to hear the direction from the legislature.
Mr. Lattimore?
One more thing. Local vendors, do we have a home rule where they can be maybe 5 or 10% higher than, I thought we put that in.
I would have to consult with our purchasing policy. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Aileen?
When you reference area of risk, I see in your report that you mentioned the need for an audit by an outside agency. So it seems as though the committee has understood that that's a hole that you need to fill somehow.
So whether or not we're looking at other areas of risk in the county, a comprehensive compliance program, even if we're just looking at Medicaid, would include external audits. So we are doing internal audits, but an external audit is part of what a comprehensive plan would include. So we should be doing that. But again, if we are going to look at more areas of the county, it would be nice to have some external support for that as well, to look at risk in other areas of the county as well.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I am going to hand out an acknowledgement of receipt of the compliance plan. Like I said, it is on the website, so if you want to complete this and return it to me later, if you want to complete it and return it now, that's available for you to view on the website. So am I okay just to hand it out?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. Make them sign them while you watch.
Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to give the presentation on the 2019 Countywide Shared Services Plan. It's kind of a little bit of repeat of some information for you in the background. All 57 counties in New York State must do a shared services plan through 2021 due to the legislation that was passed last year. The panel that we have, it is led by the Chairman of the Legislature. We, as the county, are responsible for developing and submitting a plan to the state. We currently have 33 members of our panel. They're made up of the mayors and the town supervisors and the chairman of the legislature. This year, we also are adding to the panel the Auburn and Southern Cayuga school districts and the Water and Sewer Authority. We are required to submit a plan every year to the state. We have to convey at least 2 panel meetings in the calendar year. The panel will then be required to vote to approve the plan or to update the plan that we had submitted the prior year. If we don't comply with that, then the county would still have to submit a statement to the state of New York explaining why we did not participate in developing a plan for the year. The projects in the plan that we're going to be discussing today would be implemented in 2020. They must be formalized written agreements between municipalities. There are a lot of activities that we've all been doing for years to save our taxpayers money, but unless we have a formalized agreement, they wouldn't count for a shared services plan. So we're going to be working towards that. The plan will include a certified statement of savings. The state will still match the savings that we're able to document after the completion of the year. And our plan must be submitted this year before December 31st. What's eligible in the plan is new shared services or existing informal services that we will now put in writing. Again, it must be done in 2020. And having the written agreements are going to be the key to a lot of the proposals we have. The first year of the savings must be between 2 or more participating local government entities. Some examples would be shared equipment, where we can avoid rent and labor costs, shared services, where we can avoid some professional fees, or some joint purchasing, where we're able to purchase in volume. The legislature's role in this plan, we're required to have a presentation of the shared services plan to the county legislature. The legislature will review the projects and the certified tax savings projections that we have developed. Then the legislature will issue an advisory report with recommendations via a majority vote that we'll be taking next month. The chairman of the legislature then may modify the plan to reflect the recommendations made by the legislature. Here is the timeline that we're following this year. It's a little less rigid than it was last year. Last year we had specific dates that we had to accomplish things. This year it's a little more flexible. We just have to complete it by the end of the year. So right now, as you can see, we're still near the beginning where we're giving the presentation. We then will be required to have some public hearings. And we're planning in November that we're going to have a vote by the panel. Then we would have to make the plan public and have another presentation of the final plan, and then we would submit it to the state. So here are the plans that we're proposing. Total savings would be about $226,000. We have some detail on each one of them. The first one is fuel purchases at the county highway department. Currently, there are quite a few municipalities and some school districts that can purchase fuel from the county at a reduced savings because we're able to buy in volume and we have storage. So this is an area we're going to try and formalize some contracts because we don't actually have contracts with the other municipalities to do this. And this we're estimating to be about $150,000 in savings. The next would be sharing equipment and personnel at times between municipalities. Again, this is something we have been doing in the past where we share equipment with each other instead of having to go out and rent the specialized equipment for the one time you need it for the year, and also providing some staff who can actually operate the equipment. And we're going to formalize the contracts again with the municipalities. And sometimes it's not even with the county, it might just be between two other municipalities so that they can take advantage of the savings. The third project is something that came up between the town of Sterling, Ira, Cato, Victory, and Fairhaven, that they're going to purchase an asphalt roller together. The piece of equipment would cost about $50,000, and we're anticipating that the savings would be for all the municipalities across the board. The next project is a shared town salt shed between the town of Venice and the Southern Cayuga School District. They are already currently doing this, but again, they do not have a formalized agreement, so we're going to try and formalize that. Instead of the school district building their own shed, they've been able to take advantage of sharing one. We also discovered another project between the Water and Sewer Authority and the town of Springport, where they're going to purchase and use a water meter reading device together. Instead of them both purchasing one, they're going to just purchase one together and share it. The town of Springport and the town of Fleming are going to try and purchase water meters together and have a volume pricing and hopefully save some money on purchasing the items together, that they'll get a discount. The shared tax assessment program, we had this last year, but it's being expanded to include a couple of more towns. We have the town of Owasco, and Springport had actually get added this year, so we're going to continue to put this in there as some shared savings opportunities for consolidating the assessments with the county service. Another activity that we've done for quite a few years is the planning department helping with technical assistance and grant writing with various towns and villages and the Water and Sewer Authority. We're going to try and formalize some actual agreements, make them more formal, and we provide that service at a reduced price and count that as some savings that we're giving to our towns and villages. We have town of Sterling and the village of Fairhaven are doing snow and ice removal. The village of Fairhaven plans a contract with the town of Sterling for some snow plowing services. They will then do a formal contract with each other, and we can hopefully get some savings for them out of that too. This next project, we're going to try and keep building on some bidding and purchasing practices that we've been trying to develop this year since hiring our new purchasing director, to piggyback more off of other counties and other municipalities' purchasing agreements and get some savings with that. The last project is also building on something we had last year. It's about co-locating the Emergency Operations Center for the county with the city of Auburn in their new building that they might be developing. In order to have any chance at having a shared servicing plan and some savings, we do have to have these options in our plan, even if we don't move forward with them or if they look slightly different. We're trying to cover all of our options. I also want to take a moment to kind of, as you know, we're in the middle of our first plan, so the savings we're trying to have right now with the joint purchasing, as I said, we did hire a purchasing director. We are going to try and incorporate the websites that we've been providing for towns and villages under that, since we purchased one website that they've all been able to use instead of them all having to purchase their own. We're hoping to have some savings out of that. We've also have already been doing the shared services, the assessments office. We had Moravia and Niles. We did add Springport this year, and we're going to be adding the town of Owasco. We hopefully can turn that into some type of savings. And the biggest project certainly is between the city of Auburn and the community college with their new sports complex. So we're very hopeful that that will be able to be turned into some savings. We won't be receiving any application documents for reimbursement until sometime in 2020 for the savings that we had in 19. So until we get that, we're really not quite certain how much savings there will be, but our attitude is to apply for whatever we can get and try and get the state support on that. I'd like to thank Monica Salvage for doing an awful lot of work on this project. She's been emailing and calling the towns and villages to try and work out any ideas that they had that we could actually pull together for this plan. They actually probably have more opportunities in the county. It's almost sometimes easier for a smaller municipality to work with a neighbor, and they know each other's business a lot better. So she did a great job on that. I just wanted to thank her. If anybody has any questions about the current plan or where we're going.
The fuel savings on the first slide there, who's going to see the $150,000 fuel savings?
Well, we would split it between the actual individual municipalities' purchases and the county. So it's all tracked and billed by everybody who's purchased. So right now, they're billed for their own purchases, and we'll compare it to what the going rate is for gas at a pump, and whatever we can get saved, we'll split it with them by each municipality.
Mr. Lattimore.
Lynn, Mr. Ripley and Chris and I went over to Onondaga County, and one of the things we learned was a basic thing like rock salt was cheaper through their contract. I think that somebody signed some paperwork saying that we're going to buy it at the state, which was a higher price. Can we store that and use the Onondaga lower number to buy rock salt this year, so it would be a savings of, what was it, Charlie, 250,000? Charlie?
255,000 we could save this year when we went with Onondaga.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. Are you talking about for the highway, the salt?
Yes.
Because they already were in a contract for this year. We couldn't join it for this year. They're in their fourth year. So we are looking to go out to bid with them next year.
They could have got us in there if we would have requested.
Well, this would be why we hired a new purchasing director. So, we've had a lot of transition, obviously, in that department.
Exactly.
But I'd like to hedge our bet, store the rock salt that we're buying at a higher price and still use the Onondaga one since it's lower.
We'll have to look into that. I'm not certain. I'm not certain of what any of the things are going to qualify or not for the plan. We really haven't heard anything from Albany yet of any approvals that they've had. There has been a little bit of information out, but...
Mr. Foley.
Lynn, just a refresher for me. When we talk about any savings from this plan, the state matches dollar for dollar the amount of savings that we get? Is that how shared services plans usually go?
Yes, for the first year. It's very limited to only the first year of savings that you can document that you had from doing the shared service
So like.
in a calendar year.
2021, we wouldn't see savings necessarily from we wouldn't get money from the state for that, but we could see savings.
Correct. The incentive is that you're going to continue to have savings year after year after year, and just the matching would be in the 1 year.
Right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Ripley?
I think what Mr. Lattimore was intending on saying is that we need to get in on the docket contract for the future. We will save money. We need to do that shared service. And the towns can get in on that too, as described by the county administrator.
Anybody else? No? Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, thank you.
Up next is Linda Vitale. Okay, we'll move on to Bob Foxen.
Thank you for inviting me. I wanted to describe a renewable natural gas project that we are in the process of developing for Cayuga County and for a group of dairies that are participating. First, I was going to summarize the project for everybody. I would talk a little bit about the benefits that people would participate in. Talk about our project team. Talk about what we call biogas gathering system, and I'll explain that in a minute. Talk about where we are in terms of development and next steps, and how people can participate if they're interested. So, renewable natural gas is basically a biogas that's produced by anaerobic digestion of dairy manure. It can also come from landfills, municipal waste, and other organic waste sources. So we're working right now with 6 dairies, and we're talking to others. And 2 of the dairies have existing anaerobic digesters. The others do not have anaerobic digesters. So we're going to, where they do not have digesters, we're putting in new digesters as part of the project. Where they have digesters already, we're going to be providing additional treatment to process that biogas and create a renewable natural gas that qualifies for certain incentives. The incentives are both at the state level, in California state level, and I'll explain that in a second how that works, as well as at the federal government level. So the biogas would be transported from the dairies that are participating in a biogas gathering pipeline to a central gas processing system where it would be upgraded to meet pipeline quality standards. And the pipeline runs from West Genesee Street near Oakwood Dairy down all the way south to around Willett Dairy, which is just about at the county line road with Tompkins County. And there's a trunk line that runs primarily along Oakwood Road and then south to Great Gully Road and then south along Cork Street. And then there's some laterals that connect the different dairies off of the pipeline. Right now we have a 10-year supply agreement for purchase of the RNG with a large transportation company in California. And basically, how does it get to California? They put a BTU or a molecule in Cayuga County or anywhere in the United States, and through displacement, the obligated party in California takes a molecule off in California, and we get credit for the incentives through that transaction. Let's see. I want to talk a little bit about the benefits for Cayuga County. First, there's significant financial benefits. There's the project cost in total is about $50 million construction costs. In addition to that, there's about $5 million a year of annual revenue that goes for for jobs, it goes to utilities, it goes to fees for dairies, a combination of a variety of things that provide significant financial benefits for the community. We have about 10 full-time jobs and probably 3 times as many construction jobs, which would be temporary, obviously. There's very significant environmental benefits associated with the project. Number one, significantly reduces greenhouse gas emissions from dairy digesters, from dairy lagoons. Number two, it would reduce odors because as part of the project, we're going to be covering the secondary lagoons in the project, so we're reducing odors by putting covers on the lagoons. The third important benefit is it reduces nutrient runoff because the digestate that comes out of the digesters is more readily available for uptake by crops. So there'll be significant reduction of nitrogen and phosphorus, primarily runoff, that might otherwise occur, and reduction of odors, as I mentioned. The other thing is the RNG projects are, at this point, they're going in a lot of areas in the country, and in many of those cases, they're compressing the gas, putting in trucks, and trucking it to an injection point. To do that, you have to compress the gas to about 3,600 psi, pounds per square inch, put it in a truck, and then truck it to wherever it has to go. So the pipeline is really important to the project because it eliminates the need for the power for those high-pressure compressors, and it eliminates all the trucking that would otherwise be involved. So, so that's a benefit, certainly in relation to what other projects would be. Yes,
No
Keith?
questions now or later.
I have room for questions at the end, if that's okay.
So, however you want to do it, yes.
This is our project team, or org chart. My company is Global Common Energy. I've been developing different energy projects for 15 years now. I'm an engineer by training. I'm a PE. My partner's in New York PE. And our other partner is a CPA who does a lot of work in the dairy industry. There'll be a significant capital investor. We're talking to a number of them right now, and we'll decide who that is in the next 3 or 4 months. There's the other key point of this is EPC. That's basically the general contractor that would build the digesters and the gas processing system. There'll be a separate contractor that would help with the pipeline, and then consultants that would be working with, engineering consultants that would be working with those parties to put the project together. And then there would be a separate contractor for the system O&M. Just a little bit of information for you on the pipeline. The engineering right now is about 30% completed. We've done identification of streams and wetlands. It would be range between 8-inch and 3-inch pipe made by, it's plastic pipe made of HDPE. Pressure is under 125 psi. The significance of that is it is not governed by jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission if it's under 125. So it's relatively speaking low pressure pipeline. Another important thing I want to mention, it would be entirely on public roads, so it doesn't cross any private property, except the dairies that are participating where we'd have easements that would connect from the dairy to the pipeline. The roads obviously would be restored to pre-existing conditions, and I think those are the main points I wanted to make in this slide. I just wanted to highlight some of the potential impacts and some of the things we would do to mitigate those impacts. So that there are about 30 stream crossings along the right-of-way, and we would, when we're crossing the streams, they would be horizontal drilled at least 6 feet under the stream bed, so as to avoid any potential impacts as a result of the construction of the pipeline. There's one wetland that's about 300 yards long that that's on the sides of the road, and this is all going to be on the shoulders of the road. I think, hopefully I made that clear. So we're not going to be encroaching on that wetland, but we will need a permit to bypass it. There's no federal wetlands that we've identified along the right-of-way. And there are about 70 or 80 homes that we've identified, and anytime we're crossing a home, we would also we'd be in the right-of-way on the road, number one, and number two, would be horizontal drilling under the lawns and under the driveways, so there would be no impact to the homeowners. I just put this one picture in. This is an example of, we did a survey along the entire length. So this is just one of the streams. You can see it's a relatively small stream. This one is probably 6-7 feet wide, maybe. A lot of the streams are intermittent streams. So most of the year they're really nothing there, but they count as stream crossings. So this is an example of where we would horizontal drill to go under that stream. The total project cost, it's about $90 million. About 70% of that would be funded with tax-exempt bonds, and the IDA, we're working with them now. They're seeking, we have to get what they call a volume cap to allow the project to qualify for the tax exempt. A company called, the bonds would be underwritten and marketed by Goldman Sachs, who we've been working pretty closely with. Marathon Capital, we've retained, that's an investment bank. They're helping to arrange the 30% of the equity the project needs. We've gotten about close to $2 million in total from NYSERDA and the Soil and Water Conservation Service. And also submitted a grant application to the Empire State Development entity. Let's see, do I want to add anything else here? I think I've really covered the information on this slide. And I should probably talk about the schedule just quickly. We've been working on the project now for about a year. And there's a lot of momentum that's being gained recently in terms of negotiating deals with contractors, finalizing the offtake agreement, filing the permit applications, and so on and so forth. So our goal is to be able to close in February of 2020, and then shortly after that we would like to start construction. And I'm happy to take any questions now that you might have.
Yeah, I have a couple initial ones. The one is you mentioned the reduction in nutrients runoff into the lakes because it's more accessible, which is actually true. But part of the digesting process, it creates a liquid that is your process treat that liquid, or is that to be disposed of as it always has been?
So what will happen is we'll take the liquid manure, which is about probably 10% solids, roughly speaking,
right.
and then that will come out as a liquid called the digestate. And we're sort of extracting the carbon and hydrogen atoms out of that process to make methane. So there'll be a liquid that would be coming out as well. Yes.
And do you have a way to treat that liquid?
Well, there are ways to do that,
Right.
but that's not part of our project. So what would happen under the current plan is the dairy would be responsible for the digestate, and they would apply it, per their normal practice. Now, I would just say this though: the digester removes odors, so it gives the dairy more flexibility in terms of the timing of when it can be applied, which makes it makes the nutrients. In other words, if they're applying it during the growing season, the nutrients would be much higher uptake associated with those. And also they're more bioavailable because it converts the nutrients from organic to inorganic form, and it's more readily available to plants as a result of that as well.
So and I think it's a great project, by the way. I just I think the potential to actually reduce the nutrient is not that great because of the liquid that's left over in the process is very, that you have to do something with, and it's still liquid. But that's just a kind of an aside. And when there's our treatment, treatments for that, but they're very expensive, as you know.
That's the problem, right?
So my other question though is I noticed much of the pipeline goes in along roads in areas that I represent, and so what is the
I want to make sure I answer your question really carefully now then.
Exactly. Cork Street's in Scipio, and some of the other roads I think will be in, it doesn't matter. But in any event, will the towns be able to benefit from leasing or selling their right-of-ways?
No one's brought that up yet.
Well, I'll make sure the towns are
So,
aware.
yeah.
Bring it up, because that.
We are now, Chief. We're all aware of it now.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's a great, a town budget, all of our towns are small towns, and if they can benefit from the right-of-way lease, because I assume that's the way it works.
Right.
You probably pay per unit.
Yep.
That would be a remarkable boon for the taxpayers in
Yeah.
those towns. So great.
Right, I mean,
I will follow up with that.
I bet you will. The only thing I would say is there's a delicate balance between making sure everybody benefits, because if the equity investor sees too many operating costs, then that could undermine their interest in the project.
None of the towns I represent are greedy.
I wasn't saying that.
It's not like much of the rest of the county.
Not like those other towns.
No, exactly. Yeah, no, it's great. That's great. It's a wonderful project. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore.
I'd just like to say that, tonight we're having a public hearing on the Energize New York with solar panels. So, and I know that we just had the children marching saying that, the environment. So this will help the environment. I was lucky enough to be at a ribbon cutting the other day for Mr. Dumont Farms. They're processing soy, and one of the questions, or one of the things that that operation needs is natural gas and water. So the more systems that we put along the roadside should help our existing industry and hopefully any future industry. I know that Mr. Ripley was passionate about putting in 400 miles of new fiber so that the homes can be occupied by tech people in the future. So.
Keith.
That reminds me, you mentioned California. How's that work?
So
Could you
California has a fairly new regulatory program. It's been around for a couple of years now. It's called the Low Carbon Fuel Standard. So under this LCFS program, certain obligated parties like Chevron or BP and other large energy companies have to purchase a certain amount of renewable fuel credits. So essentially, there's a paper transaction or contractual transaction whereby they'll take a certain amount of fuel off the pipeline, and they'll have a contract with us or someone else that's doing a project like ours, and they'll get credit for to meet their renewable fuel obligations.
Regardless of how that particular gas is used?
Well, no, they'll be using it in transportation in California.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I
Now
don't
yeah,
understand.
Yeah, so the molecules themselves would be physically used somewhere in Cayuga County.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Mr.
Amazing.
DeForest.
Thank you.
I'm curious about the pipelines that are run along the roads. When you set on the shoulder, some of these are county roads, some of them are town roads. If you've driven the area, there isn't much shoulder.
Yeah.
And the main reason I bring it up is we have run into a myriad of problems with putting in cable or internet.
Yeah.
Fiber. And so I'm just curious. I mean, by the nature that this is pipelines, I'm assuming we've got to go deeper. I would think that you're also aware of the type of traffic that's on these roads, which is super heavy-duty equipment.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious how.
Yeah, I mean, we have driven the roads a number of times. We've had contractors and engineers drive the same roads. There are areas where that shoulder is very tight, at least on one side of the road. So first I would say we've gotten assurance from all the technical experts that one way or other they can get down the shoulder without having to cut the road. In some cases, it might be necessary to horizontal drill to the other side of the road if there's a bigger shoulder there. They may have to horizontal drill under some parts of the road if it's really a tight shoulder. But, people put miles and miles of pipelines in. It'll be about 3 to 4 feet deep. I believe that's deeper than the broadband cables. We'll have to navigate around utilities in certain areas. We have to deal with rocks. There's a lot of areas with rock, and we're in the process of doing surveys and borings to identify better where the rocky conditions might be. So, there are challenges. There's no question about it. And when I first drove the roads, I said, how are they going to fit the pipeline in this little 6-inch gap? But there are ways to do it. And like I said, we've talked to a bunch of companies. One here in Auburn is Decatherm. I don't know if you know them. We'll be navigating that tight gap, though, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Dennison.
Will any of this natural gas be available for local businesses or
Yeah,
residents?
so that's what I was saying. So there's kind of two parts to the RNG. One is the environmental attribute, which is really what we're selling for most of our revenue. And then there's the physical molecule. And the physical gas is available for local users. It might be sold directly to NYSEG. We're injecting into a NYSEG pipeline. There may be a possibility to sell through an ESCO to some industrial user or some private user, but that would just be for the fossil gas, if you will, or the non-renewable component.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Still no Linda Vitale. Okay. We'll move on to, is there anybody here to speak to the public hearing on the local law? No? Okay. Privilege of the floor. Mr. Lattimore?
Mr. Chairman, Dale Bush would like to have the privilege of the floor.
Okay, come on up. Keep it 3 to 5 minutes, please.
Dale Bush, 116 Standard Woods, Auburn. I'm here to speak tonight on some disturbing things going on at the Veterans Service Agency.
Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt for just a moment?
Yes.
And I apologize, Mr. Bush. I kind of got wind of some of the speakers' intentions this evening. If the discussion is centered around the impact the Veterans Department has on the public, that's fine, but if we're going to talk internal employment matters, I'd ask that those issues be avoided. They're not for public consumption.
Well, the employment does relate to how well the veterans can be served.
Internal disciplinary matters aren't for public consumption.
I'm not going to speak on
Okay,
disciplinary.
That's the context of my statement.
I will bring up that something has happened that has upset a lot of veterans.
I don't mean to take your time. I just,
Okay.
you know.
You go there, Maureen.
Semper Fi. So, let's see, I better be careful here then, I guess. What has happened there is that a person who actually was a clerk but who was working as a service representative and can file claims and follow directly through with them has been fired. Along with that, a clerk resigned as soon as the firing happened. And I guess my main thing is that I know that government operations oversees this office. I would request that at the very least, the Government Operations Committee look into this matter, make sure that the charges, whatever have been made, are appropriate for a firing, that there is credible evidence that these things happened, whatever it was, I don't know. So I'm requesting at least a minimum of that. And then I happened to notice when I come in tonight that under government operations, authorizing Cayuga County Veteran Service to abolish one part-time clerk position and create one part-time veteran service officer. Well, you had a part-time clerk that was doing veteran service officer work and doing it very well, might I add. He has helped me tremendously. I have sent at least 5 to 6 others that I know needed help to him, and they have referred others also to this person. So my main thing is to at least get this looked at more than just an accusation from one person and get an individual fired. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mahonik, did you have something?
Yes, I would like to request privilege of the floor for Tom Adessa. He was here.
Just stepped out.
Okay. Oh.
Thank you. Mr. DeForest.
I'd like to request privilege of the floor for Steve Fedrizzi of Venice.
Well,
Steve Fedrizzi, Town of Venice Highway Superintendent, President of the Town Association, Cayuga County Highway Superintendents. I got some support staff with me tonight, but you legislators, I just want to touch base on our salt contract. It's been brought back to us, a proposal, and we're not comfortable with the proposal. It was a 4% over next year, 3% over the following year, and 2% over the next year. I'm just using some numbers from the town of Venice because I don't know everybody else's numbers, but the town of Venice gets $106,000 a year to plow county roads. This year I'm going to spend $55,000 alone on salt. That leaves me with $51,000 to cover fuel, wages, repairs, depreciation of trucks. It's not a lot of money. We're looking for a 5% increase over the next 5 years, but we'll take it over the 3 years if we have to. One thing is, talking with some state people, we'll do what the state does for the county. We'll do time and material if you'd like. It's a lot of paperwork, but we'll end up making out better. I don't think the county would like to do the time and material thing because you're going to have to add another clerk or two to your payroll. Don't like comparing Cayuga County to other counties, but town of Elbridge gets $8,000 a mile. Town of Marcellus, $8,000 a mile. I get $4,300 a mile. Why is it $4,000 difference between here and there? They don't get that much more snow. I know they have more money in that county, but the price of salt going up every year so much, price of trucks. Over the last 10 years, the price of a new plow truck's gone up $30,000. We haven't gotten a raise in 5 years in our salt contract, or in our snowplow contract. Our current contract expired June 30th of this year. And with all the people in the south end of the county I know, pretty much all of us in the south end of the county agreed that come January 1, if we don't have a snowplow contract, county's going to plow their county roads, and I don't think you can do it. We're here to work with you. We're here to help you. We want to help you, but we want to work together. So if the county can step up to the plate, give us the 5% over the next 5 years or 3 years, we'd be happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for privilege of the floor? If not, we'll move along.
Minutes to approve, August 27, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Appointments and reappointments.
Move them.
Second.
Any discussion on them? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are carried.
Communications and announcements.
Move it.
Second.
To leave them.
There's only one now.
Waive it. Waive the reading.
You guys got me all messed up now. We don't usually move on that, do we?
I think we do to,
On the
like,
on
to
the
waive it.
waiving?
To waive it.
Okay. Motion to waive the reading.
We'll need a dedicated.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's gonna be one of those nights. Dr. Durant?
Move it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. Good to be with you. First, want to introduce the chair of our board, Marion Brown, who's with me this evening. Also want to just take a moment and thank you all, the legislature, for your support last month in the resolution to ratify and approve the ESP contract with the College's Board of Trustees. And certainly want to just take a moment and thank the effort that goes into the process of negotiations from the representation of our ESP, certainly our trustees, our internal administration, and our representation that serves us so well from Bonchinick and King through that process. Since then, we've begun our new academic year, and which is exciting and a busy time for many. And this year we're already on pace to reach our enrollment goals. So we have achieved our fall target for enrollment, both on each of our campuses as well as with our high school programs, and that sets us up well with the way that we project and model our enrollment patterns for the year in relation to budget to be able to be on target. Over the last 4 years, we've been able to come within 1% of our projection from a revenue perspective and from an enrollment perspective by essentially by October 1st, by the way we don't do it. So unless there's an anomaly this year, which we hope that there won't be, we should be conservatively on pace to achieve our particular enrollment goal as well as our budget goal. Last year, as you know, I spent each month talking about that we were under our enrollment and budgeted goal for last year. And at the end, although it's early and we're just doing a year-end closing, as a reminder for those that forget, our year-end is the end of August. We in essence brought in $1 million less in revenue, but through internal controls, decision-making, and lots of internal cuts in management throughout the year, we actually have been able to bring that in, and ultimately right now we're in a position where we believe approximately $60,000 to $80,000 of fund balance will all that have to be used to be able to manage that loss of revenue while we still had, I think, ultimately a solid year. So we set ourselves up for this year quite well. Over the last month, we've also seen a number of the projects we've talked about over the last year be able to finally be open and used by the public. The first one is we had our inaugural men's and women's soccer contest at Falcon Park. I know some people have been able to stop by and see and support our athletes or others, and it was really a remarkable day to celebrate with our faculty and staff and trustees to be able to see a vision of creating something that now is multi-use, multi-sport, to be organized and set up for game contests to support something other than baseball. It was really well attended. We had a celebratory event with our students. It was well attended by our students, and it was just nice to be able to see the sort of the infectious energy of our student body in supporting their fellow classmates, and looking forward to supporting our men's and women's soccer team throughout the rest of the fall. In addition to that, as you know, this is the year where we hope to launch and bring back men's and women's lacrosse. Our coaching staffs are diligently recruiting to try to bring those teams in line to be able to have an inaugural season. It was an aggressive and ambitious sort of announcement that we made, trying to make that announcement less than a year ago with a goal to have a full class in for this year, and we're hopeful that we're going to be able to do that and have confidence that in the end we're doing everything we can to start those particular programs this year and build upon the success of our new baseball team last year, which fall ball this year we already have more than 30 student athletes out for practice when it comes to baseball. So just as an example of the type of impact adding athletic components or extracurricular components to the college offerings can be a part of the choice for why a student chooses to attend Cayuga, and perhaps why she or he stays and persists to their goal of education. The following day, we were able to, with some of you who were able to make it, and many in the community, we were able to have a ribbon cutting and opening for our new child care facility on Wall Street. This is a really sort of exciting endeavor for the college because not only were we able to respond to community need when it comes to our students, serving more faculty and staff in the greater community, we were able to acquire a property, invest over $1 million in it, and open it within about 7 months. And as an impact to this community, we are now serving nearly 40 more children and have a healthy wait list of over 80 children and families for the possibility of expansion or other needs in the future. So if you have the chance and you want to schedule a chance to see the facility if you weren't able to make it, I know that Legislator Lattimore and Bennett were able to be there. I know that obviously Trustee and Legislator Mahunik have been through it too. Be happy to take anyone through. It's really a remarkable facility and one that we're quite proud of, and we're hearing such great positive things from not only the staff but ultimately the people that are families that are being impacted as well. So as we go forth in this year, we're still trying to finalize and secure what funding we have for our next endeavor, which is the Workforce Development Center, as part of our acquiring of, process of acquiring the Cornell Cooperative Extension Building on Grand Avenue. We look forward in the coming months to have you formally accept that property in the college's behalf. Our trustees have already approved it. We are just looking through some other funding opportunities prior to bringing it here. It may be something that I'll look for your support as early as next month. I'll be looking with county attorney on that as well in the next month or so. In addition to that, we are in the design stages of our culinary center that we'll be looking to open up as early as spring of 2020 with a goal to bring in the inaugural class for our culinary arts program in fall 2020. And so we're really hopeful that we'll continue to build upon the momentum that we did last year, which is, setting out these capital projects, securing resources both in the state and federal level, and being able to put ourselves in a position to attract more students and ultimately to continually demonstrate to the community it's not just about the college, it's about leveraging the wonderful assets that we have here in this community. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Bennett.
Yes, Doctor. 2 months ago, I believe it was, we passed the college budget.
Yep.
Approved it. And then about 2 weeks after that, I've had numerous taxpayers ask me, there was an article about significant pay raises for upper management. Everybody says, well, why does the county give them $50,000 if they're going to put it in pay raises rather than actual college infrastructure?
That's a fair question. When we presented you the budget included the collective bargaining impacts that are already negotiated for salary increases, as well as the 2% increases or 1.9% increases that we are going to be requesting formally to our college trustees for your approval. If you look at the way that we created our budget line and when I presented, I believe I mentioned that we were looking at, in essence, a 2% increase overall on our salary and personnel lines over the previous year. So those wages were inclusive of what you approved, which is why you saw a process, which is we came to you for approval of our budget, and then we ultimately went through with our trustees, which is usually in August for management, confidential, and executives. If you're referring to the article that was out in the paper associated with that, that actually was more related to a restructuring that has occurred within the college that's been in 2 phases from an external communication standpoint. So back in August, back earlier in the summer, we had a vacancy emerge. Our VP of Administration, Dr. Dan Dobell, had left the organization, and since then, it's been my decision and recommendation to the trustees to hold that position vacant at this time. That particular VP oversaw 7 or 8 areas and had taken those particular positions, moved many of those direct reports to other individuals, and some of those increases that were reflected in the paper were to reflect those particular additional duties. Just this past week, some of you may have read that we made the announcement of temporarily restructuring our finance area, establishing a CFO position that we named Marion back into, longtime college comptroller, is now serving in capacity, and establishing assistant chief financial officer positions. All of those moves, by holding the VP of Administration vacant for this particular year, with the salary adjustments that administrators received, and with the restructuring of the CFO area with underneath it, is anticipated to be a $30,000+ savings to the college budget.
Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
the the NASA platform that you had at the college is becoming more and more relevant. I know Turning Stone had a drone presentation a week or so ago. Marcy's now building a chip manufacturing. The new project that's going into Syracuse will probably be robotic. To fill up the seats and to pay for the management team that you gave increases to, you've got to fill the seats up with students, and I think that platform should be the one that you should work off of.
I appreciate that. The college continually has a GIS program. It's one we've had for decades. It continues to exist. We continue to recruit students, and I can report that this fall we brought in a typical class that we have in the last several years. So we know that the area, certainly through the governor's initiatives with the URI and others, that there's money available for drone technology and other pieces. We have faculty become certified in drone technology, and we're looking at other ways to include it within our curriculum. But ultimately, at this point, we aren't seeing the students that are enrolling in those particular programs. However, our effort to evolve will continue to be there.
Well, I mean, it was a center of excellence under Batani and Dr. Holliday, and I hate to see it not utilized.
I appreciate that. The institute you're referring to in the college enrollment is completely separate entities.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
We'll move into committee reports and individual legislators' reports. Mr. Lattimore.
I happened to go to the 100th anniversary of the founding of Roosevelt Memorial Baptist Church, and it was great. One of the things, Dr. Brud Holland donated one of the parcels, and I'd love to see a historic plaque out there. Jerome Brud Holland was an ambassador to the country, and just an unbelievable Cayuga County resident. So if we could have the historian maybe look into that.
Mr. Foley?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you know, I was one of the legislators that attended the New York State Association of Counties conference, and went to two workshops in particular that I wanted to bring back information for and share with this legislature. The first one was the county revenue trends that all counties are seeing and they're collecting data for. And one of the trends is that sales tax is actually looking good throughout the state. And it's actually interesting when you think about it, because they're starting to see more money being collected from sales tax as opposed to property taxes, which has always historically been the major revenue for a county. But I have it's like a 100-page packet that they gave. I'll share that with the legislature. I don't want to make copies of it just to be wasteful, but if anyone wants to see it, please get in contact with me. There's also another sales tax report that anyone can view, and they're really wonderful. The second workshop was the bail reform for counties that counties are facing for pretrial release. I know that we've discussed it in judicial a couple times, and the impact financially that it's going to have. Counties are experiencing some agita from that decision, and so it has the potential to cost us a lot of money. It needs to be put out there that we're probably going to discuss it in our upcoming budget talks on a way to move forward with that. And I have a packet on that too that I would love to share with the legislature. And if anyone has any questions, please let me know. Also, Keith, Legislator Batman, was there too. He's pretty knowledgeable on the subject as well. So I think it's valuable information. That's why we go there and attend these workshops and are able to bring back some of those ideas that we hear.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Babbitt.
I would just point out that I agree with Ms. Foley that the financial presentation was good. It's always good. The NISAC staff person does that's excellent. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, I didn't ask this, but I'm pretty sure if anyone emails NISEC, they'll send you an electronic copy. And that's probably the easiest way to get it, and you don't have to copy or whatever. The other thing is I spoke, and I'm sure other people did too, spoke with other counties about the discovery and bail reform and so on. And it seems from the legislative perspective, most counties are taking a wait-and-see attitude on the bail issue. I think most counties are moving forward with something for discovery, because everyone looks at that and they're not sure how it's going to be, not certain what's going to happen come January 1st. But that seems to be where people are with that. It's a complicated issue. No one knows where it's going to fall down. So we'll just have to cope. And there were some other sessions too, not the least of which, by the way, is one night went to the Bethel Woods Museum, the site of the original Woodstock, and that was a phenomenal exhibit. I would recommend that museum to anyone of any age, as long as you appreciate music.
Did you sing there?
No, believe it or not, no one invited me to. And I started singing at one point, and people looked at their feet and shuffled away. It was hurtful. Thank you for asking, though.
Anybody else? Mr. DeForest.
Last week I attended the County Health Department's kickoff campaign for Healthy Child, Healthy Mother, Healthy Family. There were impressive speakers with great information and inspirational stories about the effectiveness of the program. It was an exciting program. Some of the banners on central buses and various other places around the community, and it was just an impressive kickoff. And thanks to all the people in the County Health Department and others that helped make that possible.
Thank you. Mr. Ripley.
One of the other things that we found at the NISEC conference, that coming up with the early intervention program, the 25% portion that the county would have to pay, if we stay under our 2% tax cap, that 25% will be totally reimbursed by the state.
Anybody else? Mr. Binkley.
I'd just be remiss if I didn't say what a great job Legislator Batman did in monitoring the gaming and sports betting session that he led. So, very interesting.
Anybody else? Well, we'll move along. Chairman's report. I think we probably all know what's going on right about now. Working on the budget. Lynn and I have been meeting with the department heads. We're through most of, what do we got left, Lynn? 4? Yeah. We're working through them. As you all mentioned from the NISAC conference, there's going to be a lot of unknowns. Whether we want to, which side of the fence we want to budget on, we'll have to figure out. Once we get everything together a little more, we'll have a little better idea what our options are, I guess. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report. We can move along into our resolutions.'s and Means, I don't see 1A and B.
We don't need to do
We don't
them
need to do
anymore.
them?
That's,
Nope.
they'll be on 6 now, right?
Well, that sure shortened the meeting up by 10 seconds. Okay.
I'm going to add 10 seconds to it.
Naturally.
I'm gonna close the public hearing unless there's anyone to speak to it. No, we'll close it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Prior to getting into resolutions, I would like to request an executive session for the employment history of a particular individual.
Move it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This should be short. We'll
Yes,
just move into caucus room 1. I don't know if we want to bring anybody in. You want to come in?